And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And as we approach Valentine's Day, it is time to talk about my favorite romantic comedy. It's time for a really late movie review of Sleepless in Seattle. Okay, now, Sleepless in Seattle is one of those movies that I don't. It's unique amongst a lot of the romantic comedies that you'll see. Okay, because your romantic interests, the characters, Tom Hanks' character, Meg Ryan's character, they have like 2 minutes of screen time together, right? They are never on screen together, and it leads to a very interesting dynamic of building the romance. Now, there's a line from the movie said by Rosie O'Donnell's character, who I don't like her character. Okay, I don't. It's my only complaint about the movie is Rosie O'Donnell and the character she plays, but she does have a good line in it as Meg Ryan's character is flipping out. She says, "That's your problem. You don't want to be in love. You want to be in love in a movie." Okay, and that really is sort of the focus of this, of, I don't know, movie love, the magic of being in love, falling in love, all of that stuff. And as someone who is a romantic at heart, I am totally down with this. Okay, so we're gonna dive into this movie. I'm talking full spoilers. I always do on these really late movie reviews because the movie came out in 1993. Okay, I think the window of spoilers has passed. All right, so Tom Hanks plays a character named Sam, who is recovering from the death of his wife Maggie, who she died from cancer, and they moved from Chicago to Seattle so that he could get away from all of the reminders of his wife. Okay, and from everything we learn in the movie, they were madly in love. Right? He had it perfect and wonderful at this point, right? And then she dies. Okay. Sam has an 8-year-old son who, of course, is also dealing with the loss of his mother, and it's hard for them, which makes sense. It's one of the things I like about Sleepless in Seattle is they don't shy away from the fact that, hey, Sam's been going through a rough time. And we fast forward 18 months later, they're in Seattle doing their thing. And Christmas Eve night, Sam's son Jonah calls one of those late night radio talk shows, psychology therapist type shows. If you've ever seen the show Frasier, that type of thing, I'm sure they exist in real life. But I've never heard one. But then again, I never listened to late night talk radio. So, what do I know? But he calls the show and says his Christmas wish is for his dad to find a new wife. And they get to talk, and the radio host manages to talk Jonah into putting his dad on the line, and they talk. And yeah, you find out that, Sam is still not sleeping, right? Because, hey, depression does that to a person. That sucks, right? Been there, not fun. He's still in this, he's still mourning, which, makes sense, but it's also hard on Jonah, and he's he wants his dad to be happy. Okay. Great. Well, because this was on a national radio show, guess who hears it? Okay. This would be Meg Ryan's character, Annie. Okay. Annie is an interesting case. She's the one who falls. Okay. which is an interesting bit. So Annie is a journalist for the Baltimore Sun, and you meet her as she and her actually about to become fiancé, right? They announced their engagement at the dinner that they're going to here at the very beginning of the movie, at Annie's family's house. Okay. And, they have the, I don't know if you want to call it the perfect relationship, but basically everything is perfect. Everything is running like clockwork, is a phrase that gets used at one point in the movie. Everything is running like clockwork. He is Walter, the fiance, played beautifully by Bill Pullman, is a fun guy, right? He's one of those guys. He's allergic to everything, which is a special breed of fun. But he's got a little bit of a goofy sense of humor, and he really seems to be into Annie. A little bit clueless at times, but not in a he's stupid sort of way, just in a no, actually, even clueless might be the wrong word, right? He's just sort of, he's in his perfect relationship, and things are perfect for him. And honestly, until Annie hears this radio show, everything is, again, quote, air quotes around perfect for her too. But the one thing that's missing, and sort of the theme of the movie, really, the one thing that's missing comes up. Annie's trying on her mother's old wedding dress. Okay. And, family history and all that stuff. It's just like, yes, I would love to get married in your wedding dress. So they're up, she's trying it on, and her mom is telling the story of how she and the father met, how Annie's, it's how I met your father, right? Okay. And she goes down through all the different coincidences of, we were at this restaurant and your father wasn't even supposed to work that night, and imagine if he didn't, right? And it goes on and on about all of the stuff and how it was just magic. And and her mom says, okay, yeah, it's just magic, just like you and Walter. And Annie's like, you see her things like, man, there's no real magic here. I mean, she doesn't tell her mom that, but you can see that the gears are turning for her, right? She's thinking about that. It's like, this is that spark of romance wasn't there. Yes, she loves her fiance. She loves Walter. They're doing the thing, but she doesn't have that. She's not feeling that spark, right? Now, again, this goes back to being in love in a movie. So there is nothing fundamentally, at least on the surface, right, wrong with Annie's relationship with Walter. Maybe you could dive into it if you want to get all psychoanalyst or something. It's like, oh yeah, this is a marriage that's going to end in 5 years because there's nothing there. I don't know that was actually the case. I think they'd be fine together. But being the romantic that I am, right, I love that. I love the idea that maybe there is that person for you that just fires everything, right? That when you meet, your world stops, and they, right, what anchors you to the world is no longer gravity, it's them. Okay. That is an awesome feeling. Okay. It is amazing. And I love that level of, I don't know. It's hard to call it romance because it's just that love at first sight, which, well, I believe in love at first sight. Love at first sight isn't enough, okay? But, and this is a movie I never want to see. I don't want to see Sleepless in Seattle 2, where the magic is gone and now they're just there, okay? I don't want that. I like the happy ending that you pretty sure is coming, okay? And of course, we'll get to the happy ending here in a bit, but let's talk about how this romance blossoms. Because in a lot of it, it is a single, I don't know if it's a single-sided romance, because the other side of it, okay, Annie is definitely the one who has fallen for this guy she's never even met, and she is concerned about herself for this, okay? It comes up a lot as she's talking to her friend, who's also her editor, and it's like, I don't, why is this? Why am I, writing to this guy to pour out my feelings or whatever at this this radio program that she heard, right? And she talks to her brother as at one point, who's played by David Hyde Pierce, and is and it's sort of fun, and it's a limited role, right? He basically is mostly just sitting there and listening, but it's definitely fun even in that. I don't know. He's like that. He's a music professor at not Johns Hopkins. Was it Johns Hopkins? Maybe it is. Anyway, I forgot. I watched this again last night, and I've watched this movie I don't know how many times. If you had to ask me, where does Dennis, Annie's brother, work? Okay. Anyway, but he does teach music. His office, he's got his baton and a piano and a harp and all this musical stuff around. So he either teaches music or is just really into music in his office. Okay, so, but he's fun. But Annie's in there talking to him, and she's like, oh, maybe I'm just getting cold feet, or I'm nervous about the wedding or whatever. And she goes on about how she's having all of these weird fantasies about a guy she's never met, right? There's a question of, maybe this isn't okay, But she's a journalist, and journalists are really good at finding out things. At least good journalists are. Or at least really good at hiring a detective to help her find out things, which she also does. But she goes to Seattle to meet him, and it's one of those cases where, okay, she finds his house, she goes to introduce herself, which that would have been an awkward conversation. On the other hand, whatever. It's one thing to meet at the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day, which is what they do. It's another thing for her to have just showed up at his house. Okay, that starts feeling a little bit stalker. Okay, just saying, maybe a little bit. But she shows up at the house just as they just as Sam and Jonah have just left. Okay, so great. So she goes around to try to go meet him. Can't get up the courage to go talk to him. She goes the next day, and as she's going to cross the street to go talk to him, Sam's girlfriend shows up. Okay, so here's the other side of the coin, right? As Annie is looking at, she's heard all of his stuff on the radio. It's like, okay, I have to go talk to this guy. Sam is getting to the point where he is actually ready to maybe start dating again. Okay. Yeah, he's still mourning for his wife. There's one scene where it's New Year's Day, and he's just put Jonah to bed, and he's sort of lounging, dozing on the couch or something, and he's having visions of his wife having conversations with her. Right? He's still mourning. But he's also at that point where he's sort of ready to start moving on. Okay, which is good. That's healthy, right? You do need to start doing that after a while. No shade on anyone who decides that, no, I had it great and wonderful, and I'm done. Okay, awesome. Wonderful choice for you. Sam's character is making a different choice. And he's met this woman, and they're dating a little bit, and at one point Sam's talking to Jonah. It's like, okay, I'm still trying to figure her out. We're dating. We're not getting married. We're trying to, just feel each other out, right? And yes, feel each other out, not feel each other up. That's entirely different. Though that conversation happens, which is, but yeah, he's trying to get back in the saddle, and which is hilarious because they actually play the song. Because he's got her number for this girl he wants to ask out, and they're playing Back in the Saddle Again. The old cowboy western. It is it's great. Now, if you want to add an extra degree of humor, apparently at the same time that he was filming this, he was also recording dialogue for Toy Story, where he plays a cowboy. Just fun coincidence. Anyway, so he calls and they meet, and they're, enjoying spending time together. Okay, the early stages of dating, and it's, again, same thing for him. There's no magic, right? He talks about when he met his wife, he reached down to help her out of a cab, and when they held hands, he felt magic. Okay, so yeah, that's not here. Again, not necessarily a problem. And he's sort of in his thing. Well, as part of all of the fun radio show nonsense, I guess, all of these letters from these thousands of women have been showing up at his door of, hey, I want to hook up, basically. You sound like a kind, sensitive man. I think this would be great. We should, get together. And for the most part, he and Jonah especially, likes going through these letters, and it's like, yeah, no. And Sam was just kind of laughing it off. This is just ridiculous and stupid. No, I'm not going to date any of these people or write back to any of these people. But one of the letters that gets read by Jonah is Annie's. And he's like, yes. Jonah thinks, yeah, this is a great letter. We should totally meet this stranger in New York. Remember, they're living in Seattle, so going to New York is not quite the same thing as going across the street for a sandwich, right? But it's like, yeah, we need to go meet this person on the top of the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day, because absolutely. And Sam takes the very reasonable attitude of, no, we're not doing that. So this is where we're at, right? And obviously they do end up at the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day. There's a little bit of will they, won't they meets type thing, but it's fine. But here's where Annie's relationship gets interesting. Remember I said, hey, maybe she and Walter would be married and they'd be fine for 5 years. No, that's actually not where they end up. She's been thinking, she tells him all about where she's been emotionally for the last couple of months. And she decides to call off the wedding. It's just, it's not you, it's me, but it's also, yes, we're together. Everything is like clockwork, but it's just, there's no romance here. There's no magic. As someone who has been in a very long-term relationship, right? I've been married. Our 30th anniversary is coming up this summer. Okay, been married for a long time. That early rush of magic, that excitement and all that stuff that comes from, hey, it's early in our relationship and this is totally awesome, right? That's eventually that blazing fire, sort of fades to a nice steady ember, or you go from a roaring boil down to a simmer. Okay, that's not a bad thing. Okay, it's not. It's to be expected to some extent, but that's to be expected 30 years on. That's not to be expected, when you're still at, a year, a couple years, right? Where you're still excited. You're about ready to get married and embark on this great journey in your life, and you're still not feeling that. That can be a problem. Okay, not saying it is for everybody, but it can be, and that's what Annie is feeling at this point. And so, even if she never meets Sam, even if she doesn't go up to the Empire State Building and run into him up there, her relationship still is going to end. Okay, and it's going to end because it's the right thing for her. Okay. Now, one of these days, I would love to write a movie, and I'm never going to do this because I don't have enough interest to actually put into it. But I'd love to write it or see it, because this would be hilarious. Would be a rom-com where the male lead is an amalgamation of all of these guys who get dumped in these weird ways. Okay. And I think it would be hilarious is, what if it was the same guy? Okay. So you get the guy is, oh yeah, she left me on Valentine's Day because she had to go meet a guy at the Empire State Building. And then I was dating this girl. She went back to her hometown and she met a guy who made glass art using lightning that struck the sand by his house. And, Sweet Home Alabama, I think, was that movie. Or, and you just go the weird ways the third wheel gets dumped. Okay, because that would be a hilarious movie of what does this guy do? You can see in the rom-com, he starts dating another girl, and he's now like afraid to do anything with her because just these weird things keep happening and she goes off with the guy she used to know, right? Or whatever. In any case, that would be weird. But in any case, yes, Annie and Sam do meet at the Empire State Building, and they hold hands, and it's magic, right? Same thing. He reaches down to give her. It's an unnecessary hand, but it's a chivalrous hand, right? It's hey, let me help you up. Okay, she had knelt down to give Jonah his backpack that he had left up there on the roof. And she takes his hand, and they just keep holding hands, right? You can definitely see that the magic has happened. Okay, they are definitely feeling it. And they don't show it, right? The movie closes with the elevator doors closing and roll credits. But you can see, yeah, here's now all the fun of what do we do? Where do things go? You can see that there's going to be a long and happy relationship happening after this, because that's just the way it was set up. I don't know what it is about Sleepless in Seattle that I like so much, because aside, it's an excellent movie. Tom Hanks does a great job. Meg Ryan is amazing. Bill Pullman is great. Rosie O'Donnell is also in it, and the movie is great. Okay, I said I don't like O'Donnell's character. That's as much of a matter of taste as it is anything else. So it's not to say that Rosie does a bad job with her character. I just don't like the character. All right, fine. But anyway, the rest of the movie, it's just so good. I love how natural it feels. Right now, they're having regular conversations, right? Sam and Annie, and they're living their lives in a way that actually feels sort of normal. Okay. I love that the humor in this movie rarely feels forced. And I'm going to say rarely because where it does feel forced, it is actually a character choice. Okay. Walter is a guy, he's got a sense of humor. And his jokes are fairly corny. And that's okay. That's who his character is. Right? It's not like a comedy where it's, I'm going to tell a bad joke and then wink at the camera, right? It's this character just tells bad jokes. Sort of goofy jokes, right? Cool. That's just who his character is. That's awesome. And yeah, there's some fun running jokes about the movie An Affair to Remember that keeps showing up. There's one scene, Sam's sister and brother-in-law are visiting, okay? And they're talking about stuff, and Sam's telling them about the show and the letter that they got that Jonah's obsessed over, and his sister goes on all about, oh yeah, it's just like this movie, and she goes and talks about the movie, and she gets all weepy, and it's like, okay, I get that. I've totally met people who are like that. But then the two guys, right? The brother-in-law says, well, the brother-in-law says, yeah, well, I cried at the Dirty Dozen. I mean, I'm saying, well, who doesn't? And they go on just riffing for like 2 minutes about the Dirty Dozen, and it's hilarious. Okay, that particular conversation strikes home to me because when my dad bought his first VCR back in the 80s and his first two movies, and it's back when it was still $100 a tape. He bought two movies. He bought Gunga Din, and he bought The Dirty Dozen. Okay, it's one of his favorite movies. And yeah, I just laugh at that because, yeah, of course the guys are going to go to The Dirty Dozen when they're riffing off movies. And yes, the situation itself is a little silly, and maybe it is a little bit, I don't know, I said stalker-ish at one point of Annie going to go find the guy. Now, even if she didn't end up falling for him, I could totally see some journalist trying to find out who is Sleepless in Seattle, because it was news. It would be one of those fluff pieces that you would see, but it's totally what it is. It's, phone lines across the country are slammed because all of these women trying to call and figure out, or get in contact with or whatever, this guy they hear on this radio show, Sleepless in Seattle. Okay, as a Christmassy fluff piece, absolutely, this is a story that would happen. If there's nothing else going on, yeah, some beat reporter somewhere would be out there trying to hunt down who this guy is and all of this stuff. Okay, yes, this would totally happen. Okay, so that in and of itself isn't unusual. Okay, but it's still, she's still, like, as she says, she's having these weird fantasies about a guy she's never even met, and now she's gonna go try to find him. And I don't know, again, I don't know if it's the romantic in me, it's like, hey, there's a possibility, there's somebody I met once, right? It's like, if you want to go to, like, Disney's Sleeping Beauty has Philip hearing Aurora singing in the forest. They talk, they dance, they spart. And he's now wants to go back and find her again. Same type of thing. It's that love at first sight, or first laid ears on you, I think is one of the lines one of the letters had in it. that trope has been a staple of romance movies forever. This is just takes it just a little bit differently. And you see it with Snow White as well, is she's out there singing, the prince comes by, hears her singing, and before he can come back to find out more about who she is or what's going on, she ends up leaving. Snow White's case, she's taken out to the woods to have her heart cut out, but that happens, right? So we're seeing that same sort of dynamic flipped, where rather than the prince chasing the princess that he had heard or seen once, right? Heck, you see this in Camp Rock, that Disney Channel movie starring the Jonas Brothers and was it Demi Lovato in that one, where he hears the song and he's now trying to find out who it was who's singing this song. Now, obviously, it ends up being more than that in Camp Rock, but it's the same type of thing, except in this case, it's not the guy hunting all over for the girl he heard once. It's the girl hunting down the guy. Okay. It's a fun flip. And I love how natural everything is. I love how little conflict there is in the movie. There is some with Jonah and Sam. Okay. The son is all about, oh yes, you have to totally meet this stranger. And the dad's like, no, that's not okay. And also, I'm dating this other girl. I like this woman. Heck, one of the blow-ups is that Sam is leaving Jonah alone for an overnight trip. Jonah's got a babysitter who's going to come stay. And Sam is going for an overnight trip with this girl he's been dating. Okay? Yes, he is, in fact, going to... He's moving from the feel her out to feel her up stage, okay, in their relationship. And yeah, they have this big argument because Jonah's like, no, I don't like this girl you're dating. I think you should totally go with this mystery letter writer, right? Totally understand from the kid's perspective, but the dad's perspective is perfectly normal too. It's like, no, that is insane. And no, I'm not doing that. And yes, they have an argument. There isn't a lot of negativity, I suppose, is the way I want to put it. It's a really uplifting movie. And that's great. That is awesome. And I love that. It's uplifting and it feels natural, and it ends with that magic of a relationship, right? I love, and I said it before, I love the idea of relationships, magic in relationships. I love that random things can bring people together and they're perfect for each other. I love all of that, okay? It goes with that whole I'm a romantic type of guy, okay? So check it out, Sleepless in Seattle. If you haven't already, or let me know what you think. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, it's all good. We all have our own taste, and that is fine. And if you want to hear more of my random ramblings about movies, tech, or just other random stuff going on, remember to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite feed readers, on Spotify, YouTube, and all those places. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static, signing off.